Hello and welcome to the Paranormal Romance Track here at ConTinual. I'm your host, Gail Z Martin, and we've got some great guests tonight. We're going to be talking about the Heart to Heart 4 Paranormal Edition charity anthology. And so I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves, starting with Pandora.
Hi everyone, I'm Pandora Pine. I'm from Massachusetts, and I tend to write series about ghosts and psychics.
Maz?
I'm Maddox. I guess we'll go with where we're living. I live in Wisconsin now. I'm originally from Texas, so this is all new and going to be very cold. I write mostly paranormal romances with a lot of action, adventure, and gunfights and fun stuff like that.
And Leslie?
My name is Leslie Copeland. I am in Ontario, Canada, and I am the project organizer for Heart to Heart.
Jen?
Hi, I'm Jenn Burke. This is working. I'm Jenn Burke. I live just outside of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, and I write paranormal and science fiction romance.
Awesome. And Jeff?
I'm Jeff Adams. I live near Sacramento, California, and I typically write contemporary romance. This was my first foray into paranormal for Heart to Heart, and I'm also the co-host of the Big Gay Fiction podcast.
Awesome. And as I mentioned, I'm Gail Z Martin, but I'm also Morgan Brice. And as Morgan Brice, I write urban fantasy, male, paranormal romance. So Leslie, let's start with you because you're so much more than the project organizer. You are our fearless editor, and taking on this crowd, you have to be really fearless. But you've got a history with Heart to Heart. So tell us kind of where this concept came from, where it's been, and how we ended up with a paranormal edition.
So Heart to Heart started off as just a random chat amongst friends. I was talking with a couple of my author friends, and you kind of throw ideas around and, see what sticks. And I was just kind of joking, and I said, "Ooh, wouldn't it be fun?" And they went, "Okay, that sounds like a great idea." And well, guess what? Here we are. It originally just started, it was just going to be something kind of fun. It was, we sort of handpicked our group of friends that we wanted to be involved. A couple of wish list authors that I had. And we really didn't have any expectations. We knew that, we're like, yeah, let's, donate all the money to charity. We had no expectations of an anthology collection at all. And it took off beyond our wildest dreams. So with that first edition, we raised just over $20,000. We donated the entirety of the proceeds to 3 different charities, the One in Time Youth Project, Bisexual Resource Center, and the Trevor Project. And then with volumes 2, 3, and now 4, it just keeps getting bigger. We do different charities every time. And yeah, that's kind of it. It just sort of happened.
Now, the first 3 were contemporary, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
why
the contemporary? Initially, we kept it with contemporary because we went into this project wanting to raise money for charity. We really wanted to hit the biggest market. Everything that we've done has been about raising money for charity, the best, the biggest way that we possibly can. And so contemporary was really, where to start with. By the time we started getting into the 3rd, there was enough authors reaching out to me that said they really wanted to participate, or authors that I really wanted to be involved with the project, but they just didn't write contemporary. And I was like, well, we had a couple, Charlie Cochet and Haley Turner were involved in the previous editions, and they were able to write contemporary for it, but that's really not their forte. So finally, going into this 4th edition, I said, you know what, we can do this. We can sustain a paranormal edition. So yeah, I kind of put together a list of, both authors that had requested to join the project and authors that I thought would help us raise money, that would give us, the visibility that we would want to make it as successful as possible.
And the charities for the 4th edition, are they the same as before, or do we have different ones?
No, we do different charities every time. This time we have 3 different charities across Canada as opposed to the States. So in BC, there's a charity called Community. In Montreal, Quebec, there is Project 10, and with a couple different locations in Alberta, Ontario, and I want to say Saskatchewan, there's actually a camp called Camp Firefly, and all of these organizations work with youth. So that's really cool to be able to support, our up and coming kids.
That's awesome. That is so fantastic. Jeff, you've got kind of a different role to play with the Heart to Heart anthology this time. You kind of get to be a genie. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
So Leslie approached my husband and I. My husband, Will, is the other half of the Big Gay Fiction podcast. She told us about the 4th edition and that for the first time it was going to have a podcast at the center. Historically, Heart to Heart has been a dating app. And this time out, as it shifted paranormal, they decided to move to a podcast. And so she came to us and asked if we would write what would be the opening story that would set up what the podcast was and kind of what was involved with the idea of this genie who could grant wishes. And on top of that, there's also the fact that if the wish isn't maybe asked right, the magic might go wrong somewhere because, all of it wasn't put out there because all the wishes come in via voicemail and then they're aired through the podcast, and the host, the Genie de Lamp is his name, decides if he's going to grant the wish or not, and, what could be involved in that, and usually has something snarky to say along the way. So we kind of had to set the tone for what that was, how the podcast was going to work. And all through this, the first thing we said to Leslie is like, okay, we've never written paranormal anything before.
You do podcasts, so it works.
We do podcasts, and it worked. And we write romances, so there was that element of it. So we created who Gene was. And Gene is actually, as you find out in the story, the nom de plume for this guy who's actually a former hockey player, and hockey is always my thing. So I try to inject hockey players wherever possible.
How very Canadian.
Exactly. So he's a former hockey player who has left the game. He's come back home to Grand Rapids. So the whole story is named a caller from Grand Rapids. And it turns out that his assistant, who's been working with him on the podcast, and the only one who knows his alter ego, also might have a crush on the boss. And so their story plays out. So not only do you find out how the genie's magic might or might not work, but you also get this little romance between the podcaster and his assistant / producer type.
I love that. That is just so much fun. And, I've done so many late night car drives listening to the radio, and I always somehow end up with Delilah. And I kept thinking about that when I was writing my story was, okay, so what if she wasn't just running late night romance? What if she was really, out there bringing lost lovers together? So I got to admit that was kind of in the back of my mind while I was working on it.
It's funny you bring up a song, sorry, because the thing that kept running through my mind going through this was there's a very old, I think it's late 70s, early 80s, a song called Pilot of the Airwaves, and asks about the request and everything, and can they get the request? That just constantly was in the back of my brain, thinking about how the podcast would work with all these people calling in with these wishes that they wanted, kind of like the old school, calling up and requesting a song on the radio. You were requesting your wish.
Well, my first paying job was as a graveyard shift DJ back in the day when radio stations actually had people. And I always said that I found out, because I worked midnight to 6 a.m., I found out everybody whose parents either were insomniacs or drank a little too much, because once they found out I was on the air taking requests, I got all kinds of stuff. You never know when some of this experience is no life experience is ever wasted.
No.
Let's put it that way. So let's talk a little bit about the stories, and we've got authors here to do that. So who wants to jump in first? Realizing that the Brady Bunch tiles are not in the same order on everybody's screen. So either I just keep calling people in the order they're on my screen, or you guys just jump in. Who wants to
It's
be
like,
brave?
it's like when the teacher stands at the front of the classroom and is like, does anybody have any questions? And you all just kind of sit there really quiet and nobody wants to move. Like, please don't call me. Please don't call me.
So I'm not shy. I'll talk about mine. So first off, I was over the moon when Leslie actually asked me to be part of this, because I remember I was one of those authors that reached out on like volume 2 and was like, how can I make this happen? Like, I want to be part of this so much. I love the charities. I love the collection of authors. I love that it's an anthology. Like, I loved it. So being able to be part of the very first paranormal one was like a dream, especially because I got to share the cover with so many authors that I've looked up to and that are my heroes, my favorite authors, and all kinds of cool stuff. But what was really cool is when we were like, when I learned about how the project worked, as far as like readers suggest characters and names and things like that, and the clever thing that she did with like, where's your dream location that you'd like to go to, and like, what's your favorite animal, like being able to pick that from a list was so much fun, because it was such a cool mixture of stuff to pick from that I think I agonized over it for a week before I finally was just like, I gotta pick something. But I ended up with, hi kitty, I ended up with an assassin who is a jackalope shifter who falls for a guy who has a social media account where he takes pictures of his pet hedgehog. And I was like, sure. So I had to practice. Okay. So I had to make that work, which is, I mean, I think once the story finally clicked into place, then at that point it was just a ride, right? It was just a blast. So I had to go with this stuffy assassin guy who all he wants to do is go home and write. Like, his dream job is that he just wishes he could write for a living, and he writes fan fiction, and it's like his secret passion. And then while he's fleeing from a crime scene because he's not terribly good at his job, his antlers get tangled up in one of the set pieces for Puffin, who's the name of the hedgehog, his set piece that Arlo was taking pictures of him being like a fairy god hedgehog. So that's how they meet, and from there it's just adorable. But it was so much fun, and I think one of the hardest things I had to do was like rein it into a short story, because I'm super bad about writing short. I'm sure all of you have that problem. But
And let's back and talk about this whole prompt system, because I thought that was some of the most fun, in getting into this, because we didn't just come up with our stories.
Yeah.
We had readers to give us prompts. Leslie, do you want to talk a little bit about how that came to be?
Yet again, when we started this out, it was just something for fun. And we thought it would be neat to, have readers be involved with the process. So with volume 1, our hook basically was that Heart to Heart was a new dating app, and there was a glitch. So rather than it matching you up with your perfect person, it went wrong. So it paired together totally random people. So our thought when we went to the readers was, we asked the readers to give us who the characters were, as in like a profession. So we've always asked for a character name, a random detail about the character that the authors will somehow work into their story. And for that first one, it was give us a profession. So we wound up, when the authors were picking their stories, we had, the assassin and the dog walker, or the baker and the Navy SEAL, just totally random. And the readers loved doing that. They loved being able to see, to sort of look through it and think, oh, I wonder if that was my idea. Or, when they saw that one and they knew that it was theirs, they would get so excited. And so we just kind of kept doing it. It was, it was a no-brainer that we would consistently ask the readers to do it. I think with volume 3, when we did classified ads, I want to say that we had over 500 suggestions. With this one, with volume 4, there was about 350 different things. So, I mean, between the 4 volumes, I have plot bunnies for days. Like, there will never be a lull in ideas if anybody wants, because they could just go through this list and it's a treasure trove of, this random detail and that random detail, and you just kind of throw it in a blender and see what happens. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
So Jen, how did you take those random details from that extensive spreadsheet
That spreadsheet was crazy. It was awesome, crazy. So when I went looking through it, I was trying to find things that would either not match or would match up well. So I ended up going with random details that really didn't go together, but I kind of made them work. So the random detail for one of my characters was that he loves dogs. And the other random detail for the other character was he's a witch looking for a new place to live. So I took that and kind of created these characters, making sure that those elements were part of it. So Miller turned out to be a grumpy introvert writer who had lost his high-profile job and gotten a divorce in the same year. And to keep his beautiful house outside of Ottawa, he decided that he was going to rent out rooms. So he has roommates that he originally didn't want, but they've turned into a family of sorts. So he's like this character of opposites. He wants to be alone, and yet he really loves the people that he has in his house. And when a pair of them decide that they're moving out because they're pursuing new opportunities across the country, they put up an ad for looking for a new roommate who is queer friendly and magic friendly. And Roland just happened to get kicked out of his 9th coven in 9 years. He's the witch who's looking for a place to live because his magic is really wonky and it doesn't mesh well with these covens. And instead of them trying to help him figure it out, they just, go with looking after the majority instead of helping the minority. So he gets kicked out on his butt, and he decides that, in the middle of, I think it was beginning of February, I said it, in Ottawa, which is, if you've never been in Ottawa in February, thank your lucky stars. So it's, minus 40 is the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius. So he decides that he's going to try to sleep in his car. Well, that doesn't work because he's very, very cold. And he fumbles his phone and just happens to open up this classifieds app that has that classified sitting at the top. So he takes a chance and calls and discovers that this is a very pet-friendly home and he has a dog. And he meets Miller, doesn't think that Miller likes him very much, doesn't realize that Miller is a grump to everybody. And it just kind of progresses from there. Miller helps him find out why his magic is how it is, and immediately, basically adopts him into the family that he's created, and their romance develops from that.
Awesome. Thank you. And Pandora.
Like Maz said, I was absolutely thrilled to get the email from Leslie inviting me to join the project. I had read all of the stories in the other 3 volumes, and the idea of being able to use my words to give back to charities is just something that I don't know that I could have done on my own. So I'm very grateful to not only be a part of this project, but to be able to give back as well. The list, the Titanic list, I didn't go into it with any real game plan. I just wanted to see what was on there, what some of the readers thought. And I saw this one character who had never seen snow before. And living in Massachusetts, I have seen my fair share in that snow. So I thought to myself, wait a minute. I had this idea about 6 months ago about the idea of a blind psychic. And of course, a blind psychic never would have seen snow. So I was able to, figure out a way that, if he touches people and his gift activates, he's able to see. So the other person in the story, he's a human, one of the very few, human people that were in the list. He's looking for an instant love kind of thing. He's had all of his friends falling in love in the strangest ways, and he just wants that too, and he wants it now. Kind of like the girl from Willy Wonka, don't care now, I want it now. So they end up running into each other literally at a coffee shop, and bang, there it is, there's your insta-love.
That's awesome.
And, I kind of went from there with it.
Mm-hmm.
Psychics are my jam.
Yes, they are. Yeah, and for mine, of course, part of the thing was that these have to be standalone stories, so they're not part of any of our existing universes. And I loved going through the spreadsheet. I mean, like everybody said, I was absolutely thrilled to be invited to be part of this and to get to hang out with this amazing crew of authors and use the stories that we tell for a good cause. So that's just, you know, over the moon. But as I went through the spreadsheet trying to pick my own pieces, there were just different things that jumped out at me. One was a character who was a squirrel shifter. And then oddly enough, there was another prompt elsewhere on the list of somebody who was afraid of squirrels. Well, those two went together as far as I was concerned. Then I don't know what it was about this crowd of people filling out the spreadsheet, but man, do they like fan fiction. That was on there several times.
Yeah.
So, and okay, reading it is a weakness of mine. I've been very vocal about how when I was first starting out, fan fiction gave me confidence to believe that I could entertain people with what I wrote, and it made me a better writer. And while I haven't had time to write it for a very long time, I love reading it. And so, okay, that was on there. And the city I picked was Pittsburgh because we lived there for a long time, and I love that city. And of course, there is a suburb of Pittsburgh called Squirrel Hill. So
It was meant to be.
it was. I mean, it just had to happen. And so we have a squirrel shifter who, as he's out running in the park, finds this really cute guy. And how does a squirrel let a human know that he thinks he's, you know, hot and handsome? Shifting and suddenly showing up naked out of nowhere probably isn't going to get the, you know, result he wants.
It'll get a reaction.
Get a reaction. He does realize that, but probably not the one he wants. So he, and then the guy disappears. He quits coming to the park. And so poor Madden is heartbroken. He doesn't know how to find him. And he's new in town. He doesn't know anybody. He lives in an apartment building that seems to be overrun by old people. So he's not going to meet anybody cute in the elevator. And so he makes himself go out and take a walk. And he's also, his secret passion is writing fan fiction for a TV show called Paranormal, in which two really good-looking guys go out and hunt haunted houses and take care of things.
I wonder where that came from.
What was your inspiration on that TV show? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, if you know me, you know exactly where it's from. And I'm not very quiet about my supernatural obsession, and I couldn't resist that one. And of course, they don't ship the same characters. He's got this person who comments on his fan fiction, and they ship opposite characters, and so it's like, you know, irreconcilable differences. But the guy keeps commenting and saying that he likes stories. And Madden wanders into town trying to force himself, you know, to go out there and meet people. And he wanders into a comic store, and lo and behold, the guy from the park runs the comic store. But he's afraid of squirrels. And Madden's deepest wish, the one he called the radio station, is that he wants to be loved for exactly who he is, for his whole self. And so this poses a problem. And believe it or not, this is a hurt comfort story with a heroic squirrel. So that checks off all those
Saves
boxes.
the day.
He does. He's a kick-ass squirrel. And I just had so much fun writing that story because it was silly and sweet, and I just really fell in love with both Madden and Elias. And so I'm thrilled to have contributed to part of this. Let me give a quick shout out to the other authors. You know, I think there were 18 authors in this, and we'd look like the Brady Bunch times 3 if we tried to do that all on a Zoom checkerboard. So we've got Charlie Cochet, Haley Turner, J.D. Light, Jeff Adams, Jenn Burke, Kiki Borelli, Lisa Oliver, Macy Blake, Maddox, Morgan Brice, Pandora Pine, Piper Scott, Sam Burns, Sylvia Violet, S.J. Himes, Susie Hawk, W.M. Fox, and Will Noss, and of course edited by Leslie Copeland. And if I mispronounced anybody's name, I am terribly sorry. Please correct me now. So the collection is available for a limited time. And that's kind of a special thing too with the Heart to Heart books. Back to you, Leslie. kind of tell us how this works so people don't miss out on a fantastic collection of stories?
Yeah, definitely. So we decided that each anthology would only be available for 90 days. Get it or don't. This is your window. And it's both a good thing and a bad thing. Volume 1 came out 2 years ago, I think, and we still get people asking where they can get a copy of it because they might have missed out. But it's certainly, you know, upped the demand for subsequent volumes because people know that they might miss their chance. So we put them out in paperback. Big.
Oh, you have a visual aid.
I do. I have a visual aid. Here you are. So yeah, we put the ebook up on Amazon. It's in Kindle Unlimited, so people can read it free with their subscription if they want, or they can buy it. And then also in the paperback. And yeah, you just have 90 days to get it, and that's it. Once it does all their payouts and stuff, we make our donation to charity, and then we start working on the next one.
Awesome. So, Leslie, you're the experienced person here. What important things have I forgotten to ask people about?
I don't know.
Well, think about that, because I'm going to go back to everybody and ask our wonderful panelists here to just say a little bit about what you normally write, so that people can kind of also find you in addition to your story in Heart to Heart. So I'm going to start with Pandora, because she's the next box over on my screen.
My usual series is called Cold Case Psychic. It's about kind of a worn down Boston police detective who has one last chance to make it, you know, or he's going to end up, you know, out the door. And he's given the hardest cold case in the department and decides he needs a little bit of help. So he enlists a psychic from Salem, Massachusetts, in order to help him solve the mystery. They don't like each other very much at first, but as the series plays out, they fall in love, they get married, and now they have a beautiful baby together. Thanks to this series, I've spun it off into 3 total series with side characters, and then with one of the main characters getting a series of his own. There are 36 books in the series right now, and people are clamoring for more. You know, we were talking about the reader participation earlier. I get emails all the time. You know, this bartender in book 2 who had 8 lines, when's his book coming out? And that's the wonderful thing about our paranormal readers. They are just ravenous for these books and these characters.
Yeah, that is a wonderful thing. And
Yeah.
And that also tells us that they've gotten invested in not only the story, but in the lives of these characters, because you don't care about that bartender who had 8 lines if he didn't become real to you.
Exactly. You know, and my books are all about found families.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, being able to make connection with people who aren't blood relatives is so important in our day and age. You know, and it really touches me that our readers, you know, that's one of their favorite tropes as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. How about you, Maz?
So I write paranormal, shocking, but I really like action adventure in my books. Like if there's not at least, I don't know, 50 fight scenes, then it's not fun for me. The series that I have, I guess technically 2 series now, but I've got my Stallion Ridge series, which is a Wild West shifter action adventure romance with unconventional shifters. Like it has centaurs and merman and manticores and things like that. And that has 5 books out. It's going to be 7 total. I'm working on book 6, and I actually I had this nice little outline for it, and then today that just went out the window. So now I'm starting over. But then I have a new series that I just launched, which is a more modern. It's not set in like a Wild West. It's set in present day, I guess, even though I don't know. It's present day. There's cell phones and stuff. But the shifter guys are actually dinosaurs, because it's a passion of mine. So the series is going to be the Relic series, and it's the first one that's out is actually about a paleontologist who gets swept up in accidentally getting involved with a cartel who's trying to steal some fossils. And so while he's being kidnapped, a pink mohawked punk dude shows up and saves him, and now they're like traveling across country to try to get away from the cartel and hitting every tourist spot, and it's ridiculous and fun. So, and lots of fight scenes in that too, because that's how I roll.
It's very you.
I was, I wanted to be a paleontologist when I was growing up. That was I think my first, I want to be. And I read every book on dinosaurs, and I dragged my parents to the Carnegie Museum of Natural History in Pittsburgh so I could see the dinosaur skeletons.
Yeah, so that was me, and I never grew out of it. Like, that's still my life. Like, I collect toys. The podcast I referenced in the first Relic book, Smash and Grab, I Know Dino, is a real podcast. I'm friends with them, and I listen to them every day. So it's my thing. It's my jam. Love it to death.
I totally get that. How about you, Jen?
I write paranormal, surprising, as well as science fiction romance. So my first series was co-written with Kelly Jensen. It was the Chaos Station series. So that was basically a space opera, two guys who had been friends in their military academy, separated by war, galactic war, for about 9 years, didn't realize that they were each still alive, and then they are reunited. So it's a second chance romance. With a lot of adventure thrown in. I'm like Maz, I love adventure in my books. My latest series is the Not Dead Yet series. So that features a fellow who is what I call a not ghost. He died in 1933 and a witch resurrected him, but she messed up. So he comes back able to transform into a ghost. So he's made a living for the past 80 some odd years, being able to walk through walls and steal back things that people hire him to recover. He is a recovery specialist, not a thief. Don't call him that. So things are going well until he witnesses a murder while he's on a job, and he feels very guilty that he wasn't able to stop it. So he ends up reaching out to his ex-boyfriend, who is a detective with the Toronto police, and they haven't seen each other for 33 years. They broke up in 1985. And so it's, again, a second chance romance while they have to try to solve this paranormal mystery. That series is a 3-book series. I actually do have 3 more books coming in that series. I'm working on the 4th book now, and if anybody's listening who has read the series, it's going to be Evan's books. So Evan is getting 3 books. He is a side character that I introduced in the first Not Dead Yet book, and he just basically stole my heart. He is a young vampire who is battling depression, and he's basically needs to figure out who he is. So he's been a lot of fun to write. So I'm really looking forward to getting this into Creative Press. And I don't have a release date for it yet, but I expect it'll be 2021.
That's awesome. And Jeff, you've got, you and Will have a terrific podcast. So tell us a little more about Big Gay Fiction Podcast.
Sure. So as the week we're recording this, we actually rolled over our 250th episode.
Yay!
So that's 250 unbroken weeks of podcasts coming out. It covers primarily gay romance, but we branch off into other types of gay fiction periodically. I love LGBTQ YA, so YA often makes an appearance on the show. And we talk to a bunch of authors along the way. Almost every week we've got an author interview, and we review the books that we love. If anything that we read that we absolutely love, we talk about it on the show. And we talk about other elements of, essentially gay pop culture that's out there. So if there's a movie, a TV show, a theater thing, or whatever it is, that'll work its way into the show as well. And we're headed towards our 5th anniversary in November. So that's
Congratulations.
super fun. Thank you. And we also have, for authors out there, we do the Big Gay Author podcast too, which kind of journeys, it's about our journey to try to become full-time authors. So we talk about craft, we talk about what we're working on, we have other authors on to talk about particular things, whether it's craft books that they may write, or we just had E. Davies on recently talking about how he uses tropes to read the market. So if you're an author, that podcast might be for you too. And then we're also authors on the side. Besides writing this heart-to-heart story together a couple years ago, we co-wrote The Hockey Player's Heart, which is a second chance romance between a pro hockey player and a guy who's become now a grade school teacher in his previous hometown. They went to high school together. The teacher's slightly older than the hockey player, and that teacher used to tutor him in math. And now they've got this chance to get back together again. And from there, I write a lot of hockey romance. I'm working on a holiday story right now that should be out this Christmas. That's the plan, since I'm writing it in July. And it'll be a hockey player and a director who's in the hockey player's hometown shooting a very Hallmark-esque film. So blending my two favorite things together between Hallmark Christmas movies and the
Now what
player.
we need to happen, we need for you to write a hockey player and for Maz to write dinosaurs meeting each other and having a romance. It would be dinosaur
I'm down.
Wow, that would be bonkers.
That would be bonkers. I love
and
that.
Maz, if you ever want to try to figure out how that works, let me know. We could have a little brainstorming session, if nothing else.
I mean, if they're skating on ice, it could be like a frozen Leopleurodon, and hey, it happens.
I'm sure that Disney on Ice has the dinosaur from Toy Story out there skating at some point. We could make that kind of happen, right?
Totally.
The other thing that I write is young adult. I have a series of thrillers called Codename Winger that involve a high school hockey player who's a computer genius and is a covert agent alongside his parents. It's a 4-book series. It's been off sale for almost a year now, and it'll be coming back this fall, and including audio this time out too. So if audio is your thing, you'll be able to catch those books in audio as well. So
that's awesome. Thank you. And Leslie, when you're not, wrangling authors for Heart to Heart, tell us what you do.
I'm wrangling them for everything else.
This is true.
That's kind of what it feels like. So I'm sort of part of 2 different businesses supporting authors. Last Court Author Services is the first one. We have put together a group of beta readers and editors and proofreaders and formatting. We're sort of a whole collection helping authors get their books published ready. Once an author's done with that, they can move over to me at Gay Romance Reviews, and we help get reviews on gay romance books, blog tours and promotions, reviews and that kind of stuff. And then I also do work on the side individually with authors, just different admin tasks, PA work, that sort of stuff. So I am a professional cat herder.
I can vouch for you as one of your cats. And so on the Morgan Brice side, of course, it's paranormal. It's urban fantasy, male paranormal romance. I've got several series. It seems to be a growing list. Witch Fame is about a guy whose brother was murdered by a dark warlock, and he's gone on a vengeance tour to go hunt down all the warlocks in the coven. And he never expected to fall in love with the next intended victim. And so that story moves from city to city. They become hunting partners together. And of course, their relationship grows because they really only had 4 days to get together in the first book, and then they went on the run together. Badlands is set in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and it is a psychic and a psychic medium and a skeptical homicide cop who hunt down supernatural killers in Myrtle Beach. And Pandora and I are always joking about the fact that they could double date with Ten and Ronan, and I can hear the 2 psychics on one side, talking shop, and then the 2 cops going, yeah, and how do you deal with it when he does? And just really,
You guys should do a crossover. Just do like one crossover story. That would be amazing.
We joke about it, yeah. We ever figure out how. And then Treasure Trail is a guy who used to hunt down art fraud for Interpol and some of the big agencies, who retires from that, buys an antique shop in Cape May, New Jersey, and ends up working with a burned out ex-Newark cop to deal with mafia ghosts and old scandals, and a hotel that disappears and reappears. Kings of the Mountain, if you pretty much cross Supernatural and Dukes of Hazzard, only the main characters are together, you have Kings of the Mountain. And then the brand new one, which actually launched today, is the first in the Shifter series, Fox Hollow, which got a city in the town in the Adirondacks that is a shifter haven and also a haven for the followers of the discredited Fox sisters who were psychics and mediums and had to leave Lilydale. And so they're in this little town up in the Adirondacks, and a Fox shifter comes to town. He's in a lot of trouble, and he is hoping that he didn't bring it with him. So just so much fun. Well, folks, we are, believe it or not, at the end of our time. So thank you all for coming, and we're going to make sure we get all of your information so people can read where to find you, but just briefly tell us quickly how to find you on social media. So let's start with Leslie and go around the circle the other way this time.
Definitely. So I am on Facebook mostly, just Leslie Copeland. My two websites, lescourtauthorservices.com and gaybromancereviews.com.
Jen?
You can find me at jennburke.com on the web. I'm also on Twitter at Jeralibu, Jeralibu. And that's where you can find me on Facebook as well, Jenn Burke Author.
And Jeff?
You can find everything about the podcast and the books and all of our social media at jeffandwill.com.
Awesome. Maz?
Maddox.com has all my links. Otherwise, I'm on Facebook. I usually am vain enough to have my face as my picture, so I'm easy to find. This Maddox.
And Pandora?
I'm on Facebook as Pandora Pine, and you can also find my reader group, Pandora's Box 11. Apparently there are lots of boxes on the internet, so I'm number 11.
Giggity.
And of course, you can find me online as gailzmartin.com. The Z is important. There's another Gail Martin who writes inspirational fiction. I write about vampires, so don't get us confused. And then morganbrice.com, B-R-I-C-E, and everything else on Twitter and Facebook and everything else is either initials or the full name, so I'm pretty easy to find. Leslie, can you hold up that beautiful book again for us? Be our Vanna White and show us this marvelous book that is only available for a limited time.
September 29th, I think, is the last day it'll be available.
And that's like 700 pages of awesome paranormal goodness.
It really, really is. Let's just see. It's 750, actually.
18 authors, 750 pages. All of the proceeds go to a good cause for a limited time only. So please get this book because you need this in your life.
Yeah.
Folks,
wait, one more thing. Sorry, actually.
Wait,
there's more. Before we started this chat, I was just checking, and Heart to Heart Volume 4, so this came out, July 2nd. We have just cleared $15,000 in earnings.
Yes, that's so awesome.
Our four-book total at $95,000 for charity.
Wow.
Wow.
That is
Amazing.
Congratulations, Leslie.
Fantastic.
Yes, congrats. Well, everybody, thank you so much for being with us tonight. And thank you so much for talking up this wonderful charity project. Folks, I'm your host, Gail Z. Martin and Morgan Brice, and there will be more on paranormal romance here on ConTinual, so stay tuned.
Bye.